Good afternoon. We're just about to begin this second session, so if you can all relax, I'll need your full attention on this. We have the bankers on the stage, so full attention on this. We need to listen to every word they say, and you will have an opportunity to put them on the spot as well. You might be able to get some good free advice during this session here, and maybe even set the tone to do a deal or two. You'd never know if they're feeling generous today. But we will get this session underway. So thank you all for coming back. I do realize we're running a little bit late, but we've had some fascinating information this morning. And I think you'll all agree with me, the quality of our speakers and the information that they've given us. We wouldn't have taken a minute from their sessions, but unfortunately we might have to curtail this a little bit. So let me just introduce you to our panel. This is a panel on the banking industry, and we're really going to look now about the bank as an industry partner, collaboration, and indeed the expectations. And I'm joined from my far right over here on the left, if I can introduce him, the President and the Chief Executive of Mizan Bank, Irfan Siddiqui. Thank you so much for joining us, sir. Shahzad Dada from Barclays Bank, the Chief Executive Officer. Thank you so much. Shahzad, come on. This is probably also a good exercise to keep us a while alive and awake. From Habib Bank, the Head of Corporate Banking, Amir Irshad. Thank you so much. And immediately on my right here, the Senior Executive Vice President and Head of Corporate Banking from MCB Bank, Mutashim Ashai. So we have a great variety of bankers here, different banks, different requirements. But one of the things I do want to begin really by asking you, we look around the world, and at the moment, I think if you're on the industry side, we look at the banks and wonder if there's still good money out there, or is there just good money for good projects, which probably should have been the way in the past. But perhaps if I'll throw it into the middle, I think, and I'll throw it to you, Amir. When you're looking at requirements out there in the banking industry, is there still good money for projects in this environment?
I think the biggest problem that we face right now is there's a dearth of projects which meet credit requirements. Banks are kind of gun shy after the 2008 problems, and
but the banks created some of them too. Keep that
well,
in
mind.
Well, they
did, but there are some infrastructure problems which are unique to Pakistan. So right now, banks. I mean, the astonishing thing is that we've hardly see one of the sample questions. One of the interesting questions that was given as a sample question was, why are banks not lending more for project finance? You'd be surprised to know we hardly get any project finance requests these days. The market is dry. People who are cash rich are looking for good projects, but they're shy of taking a decision of investing right now. One of the major issues that we're facing is energy. And until that is sorted out, I doubt if we will be seeing any major new development. We do finance good projects. We are open. In fact, we're out there looking for good projects to finance. But unfortunately, I think it's the investors themselves are also not sure of how to proceed.
Shahzad, what's the situation like at Barclays? You got plenty of money out there looking for projects right now?
Yeah, I think if you look back and if you look at all the banks, I think they're all flush with liquidity right now. I think the question is finding like good projects which can be financeable. If there's a good project where there's a good sponsor behind it, has a good track record, I don't think there's any bank right now which is saying closing their doors. So there's clearly good money for good projects. Now, the challenge we have is sometimes projects that are presented have all sorts of issues around it. Coupled with some of the economic challenges that we are facing right now, it makes it quite difficult. And that gets sort of labeled as banks are closed or shut down for business. That's not the case at all. And I think if you look at from a foreign banks perspective, I think the local banks have done phenomenally well. I think look at some of the big fives. I think they have just done a tremendous job in how they have been able to increase their profitability, return on equity, and I think they enjoy some of the best spreads right now, return on equity levels in the region. And I think this is because of a lot of hard work done by them. So I think anybody thinking that there is no liquidity out there, I think is wrong.
When we hear about good projects, Irfan, what do you look for in terms of a good project? Because that's what we hear. There's plenty of money out there for the right project, for a good project, but how do we know the difference, and how do people come to you saying, mine should fit into this criteria?
Yeah. I would take it back to what Saqib said this morning, that Alhamdulillah, the economy is booming. You know, obviously there are a lot of negativities but a lot of positivities as well, with a population base of 180 million people. What we are really witnessing in Mizan Bank is that on the deposit side and on the asset side, there is a lot of demand. Deposit is flowing in, and really money is coming out of areas right now. Unlike the Western countries, where there is a shortage of liquidity. So, like my two colleagues have mentioned, we are very open to looking at projects for major infrastructure development, project financing, working capital, everything. And Alhamdulillah, in the last 3 months, we've closed, several major corporate finance deals, which were of very large nature. So, money is available for good projects. But obviously, if the projects are not worth it, then no matter how much money the banks have got, they would not dish it out. In fact, the central bank was after the entire banking sector about, I would say, 2-3 years ago, to reduce their ADRs, because ADR, which is the asset deposit ratio, had gone up, very high, close to 90%, in some cases 95%. Right now, the industry average is about 65%. So there's a lot of money available, and the banks are, willing to lend them, provided it makes business sense.
Muhtashim, tell me, what kind of a project have you come across recently that you thought made great business sense and the bank wanted to be involved? Okay, the type of, or pick up on anything they say, by all means.
Sort of pick on,
by all means.
I think on forums like this, it is maybe diplomatically correct or politically correct to give the kind of answers that people may want to listen to. But speaking candidly, the credit demand on the bank side has become much more limited. The two things I want to build on is something you said with respect to the financial sector, that they were part in some way or the other in creating the problem. I can assure you on the domestic front, in no which way. When the 2008 crisis happened, banks had to be bailed out in the Western world by the taxpayer. Here on the other side, the banks were involved in trying to bail out the stock market, the funds, and different investment vehicles were created by the banks to sort of shore up the economy at that stage. But the other point I wanted to build on was that Amir made an interesting point, and which was seconded by the other two gentlemen, that when you look for a good project, you are looking at sustainable cash flows, an area of economy which has good prospects and strong sponsors. And honestly, there were some good projects like that came to us, we were willing to do. But midway we realized that these projects in the power sector are exposed to a single buyer who really does not have the wherewithal to make a payment. So we as an institution are quite concerned with the fiscal deficit situation, with the circular debt situation, with the way the government has managed its finances, and the way it has panned out in the energy space per se. I'm just back from a 2-day trip to Lahore, and I'm off to Multan tomorrow, and I was telling the gentleman that I'm meeting today in Karachi that the situation in South is actually very different from what we are going through in the North. My clients there are just not willing to discuss business expansion. All they are interested in finding out is what is happening in the energy space per se. Will they get gas? How much hours of load shedding will they face? And in that kind of backdrop, they are not talking to us for anything but some kind of generation capacity, which makes sense on a per unit basis as compared to furnace oil.